Hello, welcome back for lesson number 3. We're going to jump in today and start with taking some notes. So get your math journals out along with your pencil, and we're going to define simple probability. We're going to work through some examples, and then I'll set you free to do your DD1 assignment in IXL. So let's start with the probability. I know it's not in yellow, but I would like for you to copy these down in your notes. Probability is the likelihood that an event is going to happen. Usually that number is between 0 and 1, 0 being the most unlikely. In fact, it's impossible. If you have a 0% chance of something, that means it's never going to happen. That's like it's going to snow if it's 40 degrees outside. Well, that's impossible. There's a 0% probability of that. And as we move to the right on this scale, things become more likely. In the very middle of our scale, something that's 50% probability is equally likely to happen on either side. Then my only example that I'm thinking of right now is flipping a coin. It's got a 50% chance of landing on heads and a 50% chance of landing on tails. So it's equally likely to get both of those options. Moving to the right on this scale, again, it gets more likely as you get to 1. And if you have a probability of 1 or 100%, that means without a doubt it will happen. Okay. The definition of simple probability is that it's a ratio. We learned earlier this school year that ratio is just a fraction. So we're going to be writing lots of fractions today. The numerator of our fractions will be all of the favorable outcomes, and the denominator will be all the total number of outcomes that could happen from this event. This is how we note probability. We put a capital B and then in parentheses what that thing is that we're suggesting or calculating the probability of. So let's write this down in your notes. If you need to pause it, go ahead and do so at this time. Take down those notes and then follow with me on to our examples. Okay, so I'm going to just do a little, oops, I didn't mean to change the slide there. So I'm going to go back and I need to grab a pencil so that I can do the probability of spinning a W. So I want you to be looking here at this wheel, and we're going to calculate now the probability of W happening. So I'm going to write capital P and then a little in parentheses, I'm going to write a W. The denominator is simply going to be how many total things are on this sections are in this spinner. So I'm going to count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 will be my denominator. And then I'm going to count how many times W occurs on the wheel. Well, I'm only seeing it one time. So that's what goes in my numerator, and my probability for that event for W occurring is going to be 1/7. You try it again on number 2 and see if you can find the probability of A occurring. And please write it with this notation that I'm writing here, so slowly and much like a kindergartner. You can use the same denominator because we're using the same spinner. And of course, you're counting the number of times A happens on the spinner. So you should have come up with 2/7 as the probability that when you spin that spinner, it's going to occur. All right, now I am going to change my screen. Okay, here's example number 3, where we're rolling a die, and here we go. We're going to find the probability of an odd number. So I'm going to just write probability of, and I'm just going to write ON of an odd number. Oh, did you hear me? I went a little British. There we go. So our denominator is going to be how many total outcomes could happen. So we're going to use our skills that we learned in the first 2 lessons. And of course, there's 6 different possible outcomes from rolling this die. But how many of those 6 are odd? Well, if you think about it, it's 1, 3, and 5. So I've got 3 possible outcomes of odd numbers here. Guys, in all of your examples today in IXL, you need to reduce your fractions. So even though 3/6 is correct, you're going to put all of your fractions in simplest form. And we know that we can divide the numerator and the denominator by 3 to equal 1/2. And 1/2 is what our probability is going to be for this example. All right, guys, here's example number 4, and it is just a screenshot from your IXL lesson. So I just wanted to work through 2 examples with you from IXL. So you'll notice that some of your problems today will say you pick a card at random. What's the probability of picking a card less than 5? Well, guys, I'm going to just start with this has a total number of cards, the total possible outcomes. There's just 3. So 3 is the denominator. And how many of them are less than 5? Well, 3 and 4 are less than 5. So that would give us 2/3. So here is our example, or here's our answer for that. All right, example number 5 looks like this. So as you progress through your IXL lesson, you'll start seeing tables. So to find the probability of this thing, you simply need to have a scratch piece of paper beside you, and it's asking you in this question, how many of these cupcakes that's in the table listed above, how many of them are pistachio? So I'm just going to write I'm going to write pistachio, PC for pistachio cupcake, and I'm just going to write it like this. So I first need to have a total in my denominator. So I'm going to add 25, 42, 2, and 6. When I do that, my total number of outcomes is 75. Then I'm going to just read the number in the table. Sure, I'm going to write 75. And that says 75 right there. And then the number of pistachio cupcakes is 25. So that is going to go in my numerator. Now, guys, even though that's a very valid probability, I still need to reduce that fraction. So I know, and you know, that 25 is the common factor here, and I can divide by 25, and when I do that, then I actually get 1/3 when I reduce the fraction to its simplest form. So you'll notice that the question says write your answer as a fraction, so you're going to write a 1 and then a slash and then a 3. Okay, so all of the questions today, make sure that you're reading this, what it's asking for. Some of your questions are actually going to be asking for a fraction. Some of them are going to be asking for a percentage. If it's asking for a percentage, make sure that you remember to how to convert your fractions to a decimal. And remember that you do that. Well, I'm going to go over that with you in the next slide. Okay, folks, so here I am in the next slide, and I just wanted to give you a couple of tips here. It says that some of your questions you're going to end up with a fraction, and you've got to convert that to a decimal. So please always remember that top dog gets the house. So if you wanted to convert, let's say you want to convert 2/5 to a decimal, you're going to put that top dog, the 2, into underneath the little house there. So you're going to say 5 goes into 2. Well, it doesn't, so you add a decimal and a 0. Now you can say, how many times does this 5 go into the 20? Well, it goes in there 4 times. So once you get your answer as a decimal, in this case 0.4, you can then multiply 0.4 times 100 and get a 40%. Okay, so you may be asked for a percentage, and that's how you're going to convert your fractions to percentages. Another tip that you will need to complete your assignment is that what is a prime number? So it'll ask you what the probability is for a prime number to happen. So you need to understand what a prime number is, and that is a number that can be divided by itself and 1 only. So some examples of prime numbers are 1, because it can be divided by 1 in itself and no other number. 2 is a prime number because it can be divided by itself and 1 evenly. 3 is a prime number because it can be divided only by itself and 1. Now let's think about 4. 4 can be divided by 1 evenly. 2 can go into that evenly, and 4. So 4 is not a prime number. Let's move on to 5. Is 5 a prime number? You betcha it is. It can only be divided by itself and 1 evenly. So that's how you tell if a number is prime or not. Okay, it's your turn now. So log into IXL and try DD1. You know that I'm available for you via email or on Google Classroom. I'll chat with you. So let's do some math.